Oh, it's that easy, huh?
Yep.
There's the mic on right now. Can they hear us?
The mic is live. Welcome, you guys. We are about to get the live stream started. Hope you guys are having a great morning. Since we're brewing coffee 3 different ways, I'm boiling extra water, so
Oh, okay.
this kettle doesn't hold enough for all three. All right. Welcome, you guys, to another coffee tasting. Today we are tasting another local small business. The local small business that we're tasting today is the coffee with a K. And they actually roast their own beans here in the valley as well. So that's an extra special coffee. Today we have a special host, David Toderoot, one of my best friends from childhood.
Well,
So he is going to join us today for the coffee tasting because he actually used to work for coffee at one point. So we're going to talk a little bit about this coffee. And then today we are exploring the coffee Guatemala La Voz, which translates to gem, I believe. La Voz is like the gem.
mm.
And so this is going to be like the gem of Guatemala. I really love Guatemalan coffee because we get like those really strong chocolate notes. So that's what we're going to see here is we're going to have some bright acidic flavors, but we're going to mainly get that finish with those chocolate notes, which is what I really look forward in a coffee. So when did you work for coffee, David?
I worked for coffee back in 2018 for about 6 months.
Okay, all right, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
good.
You liked it?
Yeah,
Did you learn a lot about like the coffee that they serve there?
yeah. I learned about I learned about how they serve. So when you buy a coffee from there with an espresso, you have the option to either go light roast or dark roast, and that's always nice to have a choice.
Okay, definitely. And then do you what typical coffee did they use for their dark roast? Do you know?
No, they would just call the light roast European and then the dark roast American, but I'm not sure the origin of the beans. And also on the drip coffee, they have three different kinds. They have the bold, the mild, and I forget the third one, decaf.
Okay,
Decaf, yeah.
okay, definitely. Yeah, so typically with a lot of those bold coffees, we tend to see like a lot of like Indonesian and coffees. And then a lot of those, like you said, like the Italian style coffees, end up with like a Latin American coffee with like a Indonesian blend
Oh,
to it. And so with that Indonesian blend, we get like those dark roasty flavors, and then we get it finished off with those milk chocolate flavors from Latin America. And so that's what makes it dark. And then when we go for more of a lighter roast, we tend to end up with like more of a Latin America and Africa
oh, okay.
blend. And the reason why that is because with the Latin America and Africa blend, the Africa blend has given us more of those bright citrusy flavors, which tends to mellow out that bitter flavor and gives it more of a brighter cup.
Hmm.
So for those of you guys joining the live stream for the first time, welcome. For those of you guys returning, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to another coffee tasting. For those of you guys who are new to the live stream, we are brewing our coffee 3 different ways, and the reason why we do this is so that we can explore the different flavor notes that we get from the coffee from different brewing methods. So it's all the same coffee, but we're brewing it differently, so we're gonna get different flavors from the different brewing methods. Be right back. I'm gonna grab more water.
All right. Yeah, working at coffee was a great experience. I kind of always wanted to be a barista, or like a host at a restaurant. It just always seemed kind of like appealing, and I was glad I did work at coffee because I did get to learn a lot of basics to coffee making and also about the company itself. Coffee, and so
There's coffee, the company, and then also there's like the basics of social interaction in
yeah.
like in a setting where you have to serve people in a face-to-face setting, and like that for me, like that was a big change for me when I began working for Starbucks, because I typically wasn't a sociable person. If I was, I stuck to a single group of friends, didn't really socialize outside of that. And so with Starbucks, it's really helped me, like, put myself out there, and that's because of all the different social interactions that I've been forced into and gotten used to, and it's kind of helped me as a person develop and become a little bit more outgoing. So that's kind of like
Totally.
where that could be, like, and it doesn't have to be Starbucks. It can be any kind of coffee shop, any kind of job that has you have social interaction with the customer every day. Just putting yourself out there, and just really taking the chance in it. Actually, like, hey, like, and actually, because becoming comfortable with it just makes it easier, and then as you become easier to socialize with someone, you just start to make more friends, and that's important, and it doesn't have to revolve around just coffee. It could be any kind of social setting, but coffee is
True.
a great way to do it, because you're drinking coffee. Why
Yeah, you're already jacked up, ready to talk.
not?
All
And
that energy flowing through you, through the customers.
if you guys have any questions about the brew methods on how to brew the different coffee, go ahead and throw those comments down in chat. With the pour over and the Chemex, what we do is we pour a little bit of water on top of the grinds to saturate them, but we don't pour too much. And what we do is we let that pour through and let the bubbles rise to the top. And the reason why we do that is because if we pour all the water at once right away, those bubbles never get a chance to rise to the top, and they get trapped down there, and it actually slows down the brewing process. And when you slow down the brewing process, you're actually over steeping your coffee. So with this, you want to make sure that when you do your first initial pour, you want to do just a little bit just to get all the grinds wet and just have it flow just a tad. And then if you see like those bubbles pop up, you know that that air trapped inside the grinds came up, and it's not going to impede on the brewing process. And that's important because you don't want to oversteep your coffee, because if you oversteep it, you're going to end up with a bitter cup of coffee, and that's going to impact your opinion of that blend. So like you might have an excellent blend of coffee, but it might have been brewed incorrectly, oversteeped or understeeped. And when you taste it, you're just underwhelmed or overwhelmed, and you don't like it. And you're just like, oh yeah, well that particular cup of coffee wasn't that great. And so making sure that you get the proper grind, the proper amount of water, and the making sure that you're brewing it properly is very important to making sure you get the flavors that are intended with the brew. And so with the pour over, we're going to get a little bit more of those acidic flavors because not much of that sediment is getting through, and we're getting a little bit of those oils. With the Chemex, we're going to get a really, really clean cup of coffee because it's a triple paper filter. So we're getting a lot of those sediments and a lot of those oils being caught through the paper before the water makes its way down here. So it's going to be a very clean, smooth cup of coffee, especially with the Guatemala Lavas, because the fact that it's such a smooth, rich, chocolatey cup of coffee on the Chemex, it's just going to be like that much more smoother. With the French press, we're going to see the same levels of acidity as we do on the pour over, but we're going to see some more of those sediments make its way through. And with those sediments making its way through, it's going to impact the bitter flavors. And those bitter flavors that we get from the Guatemala is those milk chocolate flavors. So we're going to end up with a stronger milk chocolate finish in the French press. And so that is that. And our looks like our pour over is ready, so we're gonna go ahead and start with that one. All right. So have you ever done a proper coffee tasting, David?
Um, no, barely even a wine tasting.
Okay. So when we do a proper coffee tasting, one of the first things that we're gonna do is we're gonna sniff the coffee. We're gonna
Okay.
really get those aromas and kind of identify them. And then
Mhm.
after we get those aromas, then we're going to sip the coffee. And when we sip the coffee, we want to get it all over the palate of our tongue. And the
Okay.
reason why that is because we want to taste the citrusy flavors on the side, and we want to get the bitter flavors in the center, so that we can kind of identify what flavors we're getting, how bright the cup is, how dark, how malty it might be. So go ahead and grab your cup.
All right.
And then after we do that, then we're going to let our palate clear, and then we're going to talk about the after effects of the lingering effects of the coffee.
Okay.
Ooh, okay. So immediately with this cup, I'm immediately smelling those milk chocolate notes. You definitely get those darker notes.
Mhm.
Really, really
I can
smooth.
smell darker notes.
Yeah, you can smell those almost earthy milk
Mhm.
chocolate notes. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and sip our coffee.
Mm.
That's a really, really balanced cup. So I don't know if you notice this, but what we're getting right now is we're getting a pretty bright acidic flavors on the sides. It's
Mhm.
it's a little bit more intense than the bitterness. The bitterness is definitely there. It's definitely not taking a back seat like it would in some of the other coffees we tried on the pour over. This one is surprisingly bitter. It got those really dark
Yeah.
chocolate notes that I was surprised to see in the pour over. So we're probably going to see that a lot more in the French press.
Yeah, I can definitely taste like some acidity at the initial flavor. You know, when it first splashes my mouth,
Mm-hmm.
I could taste the bitterness, but then it kind of just mellows out. I'm not really.
We're getting a lot more of those flavors on the sides of our tongue versus the center. Like when you take that
Yeah.
initial sip and you first take that first sip, you're getting those bright flavors on the side, and then as those bright flavors start to wash away, we start to get those bitter flavors. Some of those bitter flavors start to come forward. But that initial punch is those bright citrusy flavors. And the reason why that is because a lot of those sediments are being filtered out by the paper filter.
Hmm.
So now we're going to taste the Chemex.
So what's the difference between a Chemex and the press aside from the actual filter?
So with the Chemex, it's different with the filter and because the grind and the amount of water.
Oh, okay.
So
The
with
grind and the amount of
the
water.
grind is going to be coarser.
Oh, okay. More like the French press.
Yeah. So it's going to be pretty much like one setting coarser than the paper filter. So
Okay.
like it's just a little bit coarser or more coarse towards the French press. So what we're doing is when we make our coffee coarser, we're making less surface area that's being brewed on. So the
Yeah.
finer you go, you're making more surface area, and when you make more surface area, you're creating you're allowing more brew process to happen. With the French press, we it's the coarsest, but it's also a full immersion. So this coffee has actually had the most contact with water
Yeah.
out of all the three processes, but it is the most coarse out of all. So it has the least amount of surface area to brew from, but it also has the most contact time. So all the different coffees brewing methods have like a balance where people say like, well, this one has more coffee than that, or this has more caffeine than that one. It's like true, but this has more liquid. So like that was 16 ounces of liquid in this cup of coffee. I spilled some on the table, and there's still some left in the cup. But this is gonna be like um, almost like 22 ounces of coffee. So you're gonna get almost a half a cup more than you would
Okay.
on a pour over. And then this is an 8 cup press, but those are small cups. So this is gonna be like two grandes, so like 32 ounces of coffee. So when people look at the different brew methods and they think, oh, well, I don't want to do the French press because it's just too strong. Well, if you drink the whole French press, you're drinking two grande cups of coffee. The only thing different is the flavor. The flavor
Yeah.
is strong. There's the same amount of coffee, caffeine wise, if you were to portion it out per cup. It's just your flavor profile is going to be vastly different.
I see.
Oh, wait. Did we do the Chemex?
Not
We
yet.
did not. Okay, I messed up. We'll edit that out.
I sidetracked you.
Well, it's it's a great question because not a lot of people know what the difference is between a Chemex and a pour over. And what's great to know about the Chemex is a Chemex would be a great alternative for anyone who is having stomach problems with coffee, because a lot of the times when people get an upset stomach from coffee, it's those oils and sediments that's
Oh.
messing with their stomach. So with the Chemex, you could really reduce the amount of oils and sediments that you're getting in your coffee, and uh, make it an easier cup of coffee. Have it impact your gut biome less, and so Chemex could be a lifestyle choice versus a flavor choice. Like you might prefer a darker roast coffee or a darker flavor coffee, but you're probably drinking a Chemex because it's easier on your stomach.
Oh.
All right, so now we're gonna go and do the same thing with this coffee. We're gonna go and smell it. So with this one, we're definitely getting those bitter flavors scents, but it's definitely not as predominant. Like it's those scents aren't riding the moisture as much.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely a lot smoother.
Yeah. So what we're seeing now with this is those acidic flavors aren't impacting the sides of our tongue as much. Like it's
Yeah.
almost non-existent with those acidic flavors on the side. Like before, it felt like as soon as you take that first sip, it was like all you're feeling is that
Yeah.
acidic cling on the sides of your
Like it was
tongue.
kind of like numbing the sides of your tongue
Absolutely,
a little bit.
absolutely. With this, you get a little bit of that bright citric flavor, but it's not grabbing your tongue like you said, like almost numbing it. And then we get that really dark chocolate mouthwash feel.
Yeah.
This is really good. I like the Chemex. Chemex is almost always really good. The only time I wouldn't recommend a Chemex is like a blonde roast, because then you're just making a blonde roast way too light, and it's
Okay.
like tea water.
Yeah.
That's really good. I might sip on that a little bit more as we talk a little bit about the history of coffee with a K.
Yeah. Well, also talking about teas, you know, one thing I really do like about coffee with a K is they all their teas are naturally brewed, no powders. Even the chai tea is all naturally brewed leaves, and they
Okay.
brew it in the same machine they brew their coffee. Just different settings on the steam and the time, uh,
Okay.
but
Good to
all natural. Yeah.
good to know. If you guys want an all natural you said chai?
All their
What
teas.
about matcha? Do they have like an all natural matcha?
Yeah, they use the green matcha powder,
Okay.
and then they
Okay.
can make the matcha lattes, iced or
Got
steamed.
it. You guys heard it here. If you guys want like an all natural organic tea brewed in-house and prepared in-house, coffee with a K, not only supplying you with the best cup of coffee in Palm Springs, but even gourmet tea.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and taste this French press. With this French press, we're gonna get more of those sediment flavors. So it's gonna be on the par with the pour over with those bright citrusy flavors, but it's going to have more sediments and more bitters. So those bitters are going to really come forward and help drive the. I like to consider the cup of coffee like a car, and
Okay.
whatever flavor is taking control is what's driving the cup of coffee. And
Mm.
then I like to describe the other flavors where they are in the car depending on their flavors compared to the driver. So like someone sitting in the passenger seat, it's paired well, but someone sitting in the back seat, so like if I'm saying like I got like a nice citrusy cup of coffee that's driving the cup of coffee and I've got some chocolatey notes sitting in the back seat, that means the chocolate notes are like there, but not really. It's like, kind of distant.
Mm.
And then so what we do with the French press is those French press is going to really help those chocolate flavors come forward to the front seat, especially with this cup of coffee, because the coffee was the milk chocolate flavor notes were already pretty predominant in this cup of coffee in the pour over and the Chemex. So they were already kind of like in that passenger seat position.
Mm.
So with this, I'm gonna say that the milk chocolate notes is almost gonna be like a co-pilot, or maybe the main driver, and then the citrusy flavors is the co-pilot, where it's like
Okay.
also has a hand on the wheels, but not driving the cup of coffee.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
find out. Shoot, sounds interesting.
So immediately right off the bat, we are getting those milk chocolate notes from the
Yeah.
smell, but you get those that citrusy, that bright notes too. Wow. It always surprises me how smooth a French press can always be. Like it's
Yeah.
just like because when you see French press and you see coffee just sitting in water for a while, you're like, man, that's gonna be an intense cup of coffee. Like that's gonna be dark. But this is like super smooth. We're definitely getting a little bit of those bright citrusy notes on the side.
Not as
Not as
strong.
not as not as well. So here's the thing that we have to remember is it if you really think about it and you taste those flavor notes, like get another wash over your tongue,
Yeah.
really analyze those citrusy flavors. Those that citrus bite is there like on the pour over,
Yeah.
but it's not as intense
Yeah.
because the bitters are more intense.
Hmm.
Because the bitters are more intense, it seems like it's dying down the acidity, but
Oh.
really it's instead of the acidity coming down,
Yeah.
what's happening is the bitters are coming up, and so now we still have those strong citrus flavors, but we're meeting it with that bitters, and so it's we still get now
Mm,
we're getting that balanced cup of coffee.
I
So that's
see.
why I like to say like it's almost got like that. It's and then here I'd say like with the lingering notes, like now that I've like let the palate clear and I'm no longer sipping on the cup of coffee, the flavors that I have lingering on my tongue are those milk chocolate notes. So that's why I'm gonna say that the milk chocolate note, the Latin American milk chocolate, is really taking the driver's seat in the French press, while the bright citrusy flavors are the the co-pilot.
And that's kind of like the opposite from the pour over,
Yeah,
right?
where the pour over is more of like the citric flavors are the pilot, and then the milk chocolate notes aren't even the co-pilot in the pour over. It's more of just the passenger seat, like
I see.
the front passenger seat. It's not even
Huh.
doesn't even have a hand on the wheel in
Okay.
the pour over. So that I mean, I think that's the first time I've kind of broken down my like rating of how I determine the flavors of coffee. Like, cause I explain it all the time in all my live streams. Like the front seat, the back seat,
Yeah.
got his hands on the wheel. And everyone's probably like, what is he talking about? So, for those of you guys who had no idea what I'm talking about when I'm talking about front seat, back seat, hand on the wheel, co pilot, that's what I mean is the different flavor notes that we get and where they are in the car.
Yeah.
All right, so now that we have tasted the flavor notes, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of coffee and how it all started. So, with Coffee with a K, it actually all started here in Palm Springs with John Abner and John Strom. So, we've got John and John, and it was in 2002 when they founded their first coffee shop and opened up their first shop in Palm Springs. And then it was 6 years later in 2008 when they opened up their second coffee shop in South Palm Springs. And so they have that shop, and then we get the what is it? 5 years later in 2013, Coffee with a K opened up their first roastery,
Yeah.
and their first roastery is in Rancho Mirage off of Highway 111. So we're actually going to visit that roastery here in the future in a little bit, do a little bit of tour, show it off to you guys, see what it looks like, maybe go in a little bit of into what the process looks like of roasting a bean. If they, will show that to us. If they don't, we'll go through our own process of what it takes to roast a bean. And then it was in
It was
2018 when they opened up um their fourth coffee shop, and that is the coffee shop that you worked at. And then when you worked there?
I worked when they were starting, when they were
When they're
opening
open?
up,
Okay,
so
okay,
I
that's right.
helped clean up the
So
place
that's
for the health
okay.
inspections.
Absolutely. So, yeah, so, and that was 2018, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
2018.
Yeah, so 2018 is when they opened up their fourth coffee shop, which is just down the street from where I live. Super cool shop, got some amazing outdoor vibes. And then also, I had no idea, but David let me know this morning that they are actually a bakery as well. So they actually are an in-house bakery where they bake all their goods there. So I mean, geez, not only do they have like gourmet organic tea, but they make their own pastries as well. So if you guys are visiting Palm Springs, or if you guys are a resident of Palm Springs, I would encourage you to just take a single day out of your normal routine, whatever that routine is, and then just support your local coffee shop. This week, I really encourage you guys to step on by Coffee with a K in Palm Springs. Any location doesn't matter. They've got tons of different coffees available to buy and brew from. And they roast all their coffees themselves at the Rancho Mirage location. So the coffee that we tasted today is roasted by their professional roasters in Rancho Mirage, California. So super cool. So if you guys are visiting Palm Springs, you guys can even make your way down to Rancho Mirage, which is not that far away, and check out their roastery. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the fourth location. It's like you said, it is a bakery, and it is located on a historic property called the Captor Plaza, and this historic property was actually built by a famous architect, and this famous architect's name is Hugh Captor, and so obviously the plaza is named after himself. And so I mean the only way you guys can witness how amazing this plaza looks, and it's like modern. Would you say it's got like a modernism feel to it almost?
Yeah,
Um,
very unique.
yeah, very unique. Definitely check that out. The only way you guys can really experience it for yourself is to really go there, and just check out the ins and outs of the building. So
And
yeah,
and if you're worried about COVID and safety, I would recommend going to the Captor Plaza because it's more open space.
you
They have an
absolutely.
open plaza. You can sit down and drink.
Absolutely. It's white. It's got definitely has a wide open space. You can maintain that 6 feet distance. Make sure that you can have enjoy your cup of coffee and not have to worry about close contact with someone you might not know. But don't let that stop you from, introducing yourself to new people. We're getting out there, trying to get back to normal. But while we introduce ourselves to new people and make new friends and experience these moments with other people through coffee and other things, we do want to make sure that we maintain safety. So, yeah, awesome. Thank you, David, for joining me on today's live stream.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Everyone, thank David for joining us. Super cool that we had my best friend from my childhood uh, able to join us for a coffee tasting today. So that's super cool. And then we got to explore a local business, got to explore how it started, where it started, and where it is today. And then also with my best friend, he worked there, so we got to learn a little bit about it from the inside as well. So
Also, what else is interesting? One of the owners worked at Starbucks, so he got the business plan based off of what Starbucks already does.
absolutely, and that's another important thing, you guys, too, to highlight. When you start your career with a business, don't you always want to strive to grow, and that might even mean starting your own business and taking what you've learned from a larger business, like whether it be um, practices with serving customers, or I mean even just the knowledge you learn from like brewing coffee can inspire you. I mean, what inspires me is knowledge and the culture and history of coffee, and that's where these YouTube videos come from. Is just from my passion for learning those things about coffee and the coffee growers. And so, um, my thing is discover your passion and run with it, whatever it may be. Um, and yeah, that's the message of the day.
Yeah.
Discover your passion and run with it, and supporting local small businesses. So thank you guys for joining today's live stream. Have a great day. I will see you guys this Friday. All right, and that is it. And now we got to do one last